So hello everyone and welcome to this evening's webinar from the Reiki Guild, and this evening we are going to look at the Reiki Kanji, the meaning and the essence of the characters that make up the word Reiki in Japanese. I'm Louise Carden and I'm Secretary of the Reiki Guild, and I'm joined on this webinar this evening by Robert Jefford, who is our Honorary President. Robert has many years' experience in the field of Reiki and has studied with many international teachers of both Western and Eastern Reiki. And this evening he will be giving the talk about Reiki Kanji, and there will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. So before we start, I just want to go through a little bit of technical information, especially for those of you who've never been on one of our webinars before. First thing, if you can't hear us, check your speakers are on and that you've got no loose connections anywhere. This is so simple, but it happens such a lot that the wires come out connecting your speakers, and of course we want you to be able to hear what's going on this evening. Now, the internet is a wonderful thing, but it doesn't always do what we like it to do. Occasionally we get dropouts on the internet, and that may be at our end or at your end. Generally it comes back on quite quickly, so don't panic if we disappear. If you hang on, it will probably come back, but that's not anything that we have any control over, unfortunately. Now, you should be seeing a chat box in the top right-hand corner of your screen, but unfortunately, if you're watching this on an iPad, you may not have this function. You may see the chat screen, but it may not work for you. I know GoToWebinar have been trying to make this webinar software compatible with iPad, but at the moment it hasn't been working. If you're on a Mac, ordinary computer, it seems to be okay. It's just iPads. Now, you can type messages and comments into that chat box, which I will be able to see, and you can also click on the little hand icon to attract my attention. Now, I do my best to keep an eye on all that, but it is quite difficult to, during a presentation, to be able to keep an eye on everything. So don't despair if I don't answer your question. I see I've got a question already. Let me just have a look at that. Just testing it. Okay, yes, I saw that, Marissa. So perhaps you could all just raise your hand and I'll check that that's working. If you just want to click on your hand icon, and I'll have a look and see that that's working and you can hear me. Okay, most of you have managed to click on that, so that's good. Excellent. I'll assume the rest of you just aren't paying attention at the minute. So I'm going to put all your hands down. And as I say, if you need to attract my attention, you can do that and hopefully I will see it. Thank you, Val. See your hand. Excellent. Okay, and then the last point, you may find using headphones helpful if you have them, especially if you want to ask a question live on air at the end. As I say, you can type your questions into the chat box, but I also have the facility to open the microphone at your end so that we can hear you. But we just get a better sound quality for the recording if you have a headphone. Okay, so that's all my technical preamble. Oh, I see, Val, you've got your hand up. Type a question into the box, Val, if you've got a question. Let me just check that again. I guess it's possible that Val can't hear me. That's why she's got her hand up, but there's not much I can do about that. I'll wait and see if she types. Oh, hang on, there's a question. Let me just check. Hand showing red, which I think is off. I'm going to put your hand down, Val, Okay, so now your hand is off, right? So your hand is down at the minute. So everybody's hands are down. Okay, so we're now going to move on to the main part of the webinar. And for this, I am going to hand over to Roberts. You're there loud and clear, I think, Roberts?
I am, Louise.
Okay, so now I'm going to hand over to you, and if you just let me know when you want me to move the slide on, I will do that.
That's fine, thank you.
You're clear to go.
Okay, yokosa. Minasan konnichiwa, mata aimashite ne. Welcome everybody to tonight's presentation. Just to remind you that all the great spiritual teachers, such as Buddha, etc., said, don't accept anything I say on face value, test it for yourself. What I'm about to present is exactly what the Japanese language says, and in some cases it may cause you to rethink, to reinterpret, and in some cases it may help that you think, wow, this is something that I already knew. If so, welcome. So let us start with the fact we have kanji. As you can see on the slide, the kaisho is the modern and the kaisho old. The old kaisho kanji is pre-World War II, and this is the kanji that Mikao Usui would have known and used. It's a standard style which was written in pre-World War. The kaisho modern is a style which came into being from the Japanese government in the 1940s, around about 1946, when they revised the kanji, simplified the writing system, and although it reads, as we understand it, the words Reiki, the modern kanji does not have the same meaning or interpretation. In fact, it bears little relation to what we understand as Reiki. And again, it's something that Mikao Usui, as I said, would not have known because it came into being 20 years after his death. A totally different meaning. For those of you who are familiar with the gravesite, where there is a memorial to Mikao Usui, the words Reiki are written in the old style that you see on the right-hand side. Now, before we get into kanji, there is a thing which I would like you to consider, and that is Reiki. The words Reiki are actually words that describe what we do. It is not the name of what we do. They are descriptions. And one of the things with a direct interpretation of words from kanji, if we look at the English word, we have right, R-I-T-E, W-R-I-T-E, R-I-G-H-T, all of them are pronounced right, but each of them has a different meaning. Now the same with the kanji for rei. If we take the word tenki as an example, as a standalone, the individual word ten signifies heaven or sky, and the word ki, most of us commonly translate ki as spirit, energy, or feeling. So, if in an attempt to arrive at the meaning of the single word tenki, we simply combine the meanings of the two other words, ten and ki, we should end up with something like heavenly spirit, maybe heavenly energy, as opposed to earth energy, but in fact the word tenki simply means weather. So as you can see, two different meanings. Now the word Reiki, if we look at the old kaisho, are very particular words. They're pictograms or ideographs, and most of you have heard the phrase, a picture tells 1,000 words. And in this case, this tells many words to the Japanese. But before we go on, most of us are familiar with the term Reiki as being translated as universal life force energy. And in one sense that is true, but not fully accurate. And we're also told that Reiki is a divine energy, a divine spirit, or a cosmic energy. And if we look back at the recent history of Reiki, it would seem that in hearing Takata Sensei speak of Reiki as a universal force from the great divine spirit and a cosmic energy, many of our students took this to mean that Reiki as an energy was something outside of ourselves, something out there, beyond us, something we channeled rather than something arising within us. And this is the understanding these students passed on to their students. However, the idea of Reiki being something external is perhaps only part of the truth. I'm going to refer to a diary entry dated December the 10th, 1935, where Takata wrote about Reiki being energy within one's self, and also about how we must meditate to let the energy come out from within. Now, concerning the energy, Reiki, she said, it lies in the bottom of your stomach about 2 inches below the navel. So our first concept from that is that Reiki is not something outside of us. It's not something that enters the crown chakra. It is not something we channel. It is something that comes from within. What the Chinese call the Dantian, what the Japanese may call the Hara. And one of the great mystics of our time, Oyashiba Sensei, who was a great friend of Mikao Usui, spoke about the divine is not something high above us. It is in heaven, it is in earth, it is inside us. So, whilst we look at the old kanji, although it talks about spirit, it is not spirit in the sense that we would think from the term of spiritual healing. Not something outside of ourselves or something different, something we channel, but something that originates from within. So, as we look again, we look at maybe the top part, Rei, meaning universal or everywhere present, but however, there's something far deeper. So as you're looking at the old kanji, if you look at the characters just above those 3 boxes, the literal meaning of that is rainfall. So the ancient Japanese relied on rainfall for their agriculture and drinking water, and it was regarded as a blessing from the universe. That part is a blessing, that rainfall, that flow of Reiki. And the 3 little boxes underneath, meaning body or container. So if we look at those 2 top parts, down to the 3 boxes, we're actually looking at a blessing and us as the container of that blessing. So the top 2 parts could give us receiving the blessing into our body as a container. But as we said, there is nothing outside us. And if we look at the next part with those 2 little sort of mountain type things and the rest of the kanji, you think this actually indicates a medium, but again, not a medium of spiritual healing, not a channeler, but a medium in the sense that we bring a message, that we are that message, that we are that energy. So we receive the blessing, we are the container, and we are the messenger, or the being that brings the Reiki blessing. So the whole of that top part, the ray, could indicate something that brings us a significant message that human beings possess the ability to connect to the divine as a medium for this spiritual blessing. In other words, we are Reiki, we become Reiki, and we give out the Reiki. Now, if we look at the modern kanji for a moment, so if we can change the slide there, Louise, to the new one, please, that's it. You notice that there's a totally different meaning if you look at the bottom with those couple of strokes. So the whole of the word kanji actually means energy, or it is an energy of a sort, yeah? Now, most Western Reiki Master teachers write the ki as you see in the modern Kaisho. And you'll see that the bottom of the kanji is slightly different. So the symbol used for energy, if you look at the very bottom of that kanji, is that, like that little cross, slightly off-center like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Now, there's a little thing here that might shock each and every one of you, because in the Japanese language, that ki appended to the symbol above ray actually means to stop or block the flow of energy. So although both signs are correct in the sense of expressing the word Reiki properly in writing, the original version holds the true meaning of Reiki. But the bottom word in the modern kanji is actually giving the Reiki energy the instruction to turn off or to stop working. So if we are using that kanji, then we are turning off, as it were, the light switch, or we're turning off the power. We are instructing Reiki, do not work, do not begin, or if you're on, turn off. So for us in Reiki, it is important that we use the Kaisho old kanji, because this gives the true and proper meaning of the symbol. So let's have a look, a little bit of a look as to what the old kanji actually means, which is quite simply a lot different. And then we perhaps get a flavour that Reiki is not just universal life force energy. In fact, that's quite a poor definition, because it means so much more. So let me just ask a question. Anybody know anything about the Japanese language, or know anything of the real meaning of the kanji?
If anyone wants to put their hand up for that, I can see. Doesn't look as though anyone wants to admit to that. If they do.
Okay, that's all right. That's not a problem. We'll try and get something. The thing with this is it's such a deep subject that we can go on for quite some time into real depth in this, but unfortunately we don't have that time. But we have some links at the end which Louise will supply to you for those who want to do some deeper research. And of course, if you get back in touch with the Reiki Guild, then through them I can provide perhaps some more information for you, rather than try and cover.
Okay, I have got a question here, Robert, which is relevant at this moment. Somebody's asking, what actually does Kaisho mean? They understand the word kanji, but not the word Kaisho.
Well, Kaisho refers to the style of the kanji, the style of the writing. So it means it's the standard style written in pre-World War II, and that's how Reiki was written during Mikao Usui's lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Shosho is the newer style, the modern style, but Kaisho refers to the old style, which is pre-World War II.
Yeah.
What happened in round about 1940, 1946, was the Japanese government decided that it was time to, if you like, update the language. So what they did, they looked at and simplified many of the kanji, reduced the number that people had to learn, made things simpler, but unfortunately it changed the meaning. One of the things with kanji, it actually means Chinese writing, and the Japanese themselves did not have a written language. It was a spoken language long before it was put into writing, and because they didn't have a written language, they borrowed Chinese characters, which is basically what kanji means, Chinese writing or Chinese characters. And it goes into a thing which is called an on reading and a kun reading. So you can read the literal Chinese meaning, or you can read the Japanese meaning to the same kanji, which gives it an interesting flavour. And then everything, as you probably know, is context dependent. So just reading the word ki simply means energy, but the Japanese have very specific words to identify the type of energy that we are using really specifically. So we could have, for instance, electricity is a type of energy. Our moods, etc., can be put into types of energy, and there are very specific Japanese words for that, but a Chinese person would also understand it differently as well. In fact, if you speak to people in Japan and you use the word Reiki, many of them will look at you very strangely, because it's not so much used there that well, it's not so much known, and it's not so much appreciated, because one of the reasons can mean ghost or something spooky. But if you speak different words like Linki, many people will understand what you're talking about. Or if you tell them that you do, for instance, Shingon practices or meditations, they will instantly know that you mean Reiki as we understand it. But if you use the word, are you a Reiki practitioner, unless you meet a Westerner, they'll probably look at you very, very strangely. So be aware that what we take for granted in this country is not always the norm in Japan. So you might find that very strange, but that's the way it is. And one of my students, Tony, is over there at the moment, and when he used the word Reiki when he was first there, he found people didn't understand what he was trying to say. But when he said he was a Shingon practitioner, everybody understood. Does that make things clear?
Yeah, thank you,
and
Robert.
Also muddy the waters a bit, obviously. I've just got to bring up something here.
Mm-hmm.
Right, there we go. So one of the things we said about Reiki is that we can't take take two words and necessarily put them together and get an accurate meaning. So if we look at Reiki at the moment in its modern sense, as it's used in the name Usui Reiki Ryoho, it simply translates as spirit or spiritual. So Usui Reiki Ryoho translates more clearly as Usui's spiritual healing method. But before we have any misunderstandings, we're not talking about spiritual healing in guides and channeling. We are talking about our own spirit and divine part of us. So is everybody clear on that? So it's spiritual essence, a spiritual feeling, a spiritual intent, a spiritual influence, a spiritual emanation. Could also be translated as soul power or soul force. And it could also be translated as aura. But what we're talking about is the emanation of spirit, our spirit, around our body. And so the key part of the word would simply seem to speak to the dynamic, the effect of spirit in action. So Reiki is actually spirit in action. And a more accurate way of looking at Reiki is that first and foremost it is a spiritual path, a path of personal development. The goal of Reiki, from our Reiki Kanji, is enlightenment. And enlightenment in this life, in the here and now, with healing simply as a byproduct of what we do. Healing is secondary to the spiritual path. Now, the first thing is about what I call righteous selfishness. And what I mean by that is that we look after ourselves first. And let me give you an example. If you were always ill, and you were always down and out, always negative and so on, are you in a position of power to help another person? For instance, how many of you would go to a bankrupt for financial advice? Or how many of you would go to somebody who has been very bad in business and every business has failed and ask them how to start up and run a successful business? Our first and foremost concern with Reiki, the spiritual intent, the spiritual essence and feeling, etc., is that we work on ourselves first. Daily self-practice. And the old Kaisho, the bottom part, the key which is different, is an open key. It actually invites the energy to open up, to flow with full power, full intent. And this is what we want, because from the ray above we are blessed with Reiki. Our bodies, in those little three containers underneath, our bodies are the containers of Reiki. We are blessed with the Reiki within us. Not just within us, but it emanates without, to the whole of the universe and beyond. In fact, I like the saying of perhaps the second greatest Reiki master ever, Buzz Lightyear, whose famous saying is, to infinity and beyond. And that is what the Reiki Kanji helps us to understand. And the key underneath is not only to turn the power on, but to have it flowing fully, flowing freely, right here, right now, and forever. And when we do our daily practice, along with our precepts, as Usui himself spoke to us and said, in the morning and in the evening, with the hands in Gasho, chant these words. We know that this is the secret, as Usui said, of inviting happiness, the secret of spiritual blessing, the secret, the medicine of all illnesses. This is the great thing. And when we look at the meaning of Reiki, the essence of Reiki in the spirit force that we are, and allow it to flow freely and work with us and through us, and we are that essence, then we come from a very powerful position. Reiki is blessing us, and we are able to bless others. We maintain health, we maintain wealth, etc. How many of you are subject to, for instance, all the negativity of the world is that, oh, it's a hard life, we're in a depression, we're in a recession, I haven't got enough money, I haven't got enough this, I haven't got enough that. Yet if we claim to be masters of Reiki or practitioners of Reiki, we are masters, practitioners of universal energy. And how many of you would affirm that the universe is less than abundant, less than whole, less than healthy? If we are one with the universe, we are one with all that is good. There is no need, there is no recession. We are full of abundance. And again, how many of you can count, for example, the hairs on your head, the stars in the sky? Pick up a handful of sand from the beach and count the number of grains just in a handful of sand. Abundance is all around us. Reiki is that abundance in all things, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And so we go beyond just that it's universal life force energy. We get a sense of that magnificence of what Reiki really is, more than just life force energy. And we are it. Any questions so far?
Yeah, I've got a question here, Robert, which probably fits in here. It's, if Reiki is in us rather than coming in externally, why is it that we need attunements? How long have you got?
Oh, we need to talk about what attunements are and all sorts of other things with that. Yes,
I think probably easy. Don't go into it too deeply, I think, or we'll run out of time. But perhaps if you could just briefly touch on that topic.
Yes, briefly, is that Reiki is a very specific energy. To be very brief at the moment, and perhaps a little unfairly to you all, is that if we look at any religious movement, let's take perhaps the priesthood, without going into as to whether women should be priests or not, doesn't matter at this stage. A priest is ordained. There is a specific ceremony, if you like, to attune that person to that specific function. Reiki is a very specific energy. It is not electricity or anything else. There is traditionally a very specific attunement to it. It is something that makes us aware of Reiki, opens us up. I'll use that word loosely, but opens us up to the flow of Reiki and the possibility of Reiki. I'll be happy to discuss this in depth at a later time.
Yeah, I mean, the way I like to describe it, Robert, is that the process of attunement allows us to remember our true self, so that we remember that we've got this, you know, that it's there all the time, and the attunement just reminds us.
That's a very good way, Louise, because it's like we are born, babies are the greatest key masters ever. Mm-hmm. Look at a young child, and as we grow and we become conditioned, we forget that which we came in with, that pure, if you like, alignment to this wonderful energy. Mm-hmm. So yes, it is a way of reminding us to go back to that childlike state and remember exactly who we are.
Yeah. Attunements could be another whole webinar on its own, I should say. So perhaps if we just...
Yes. But we won't go there
yeah.
now, otherwise we'll be here for a long, long time.
Yeah. Okay, so I hope that helps. Just a brief explanation there. Okay.
Okay,
So
any more questions?
No, it looks like we're clear at the minute. Just quickly flicking through. No. Okay, if you want to continue then, Robert. No.
Okay, I hope everybody's a little bit shocked at the moment. But the intention isn't to get at anybody or anybody's Reiki or style. It's to say exactly what the words or the kanji means. Let me have a look from some of the old sayings that I have here that may well be relevant. And one referring to Reiki, quite life. If you have life in you, you have access to the secrets of the ages, for the truth of the universe resides in each and every human being. And that saying was again from the magnificent Oyashiba Sensei, who was a very, very good friend and colleague of Mikao Usui. Another one which I believe is relevant says, all the principles of heaven and earth are living inside you. Life itself is the truth, and this will never change. Everything in heaven and earth breathes. Breath is the thread that ties creation together. When the myriad variations in the universal breath can be sensed, the individual techniques of Reiki are born. And that is in the kanji, referring to wind, to ghost, to spirit, quite a lot. So we are very powerful, very wonderful beings. And we have it all in that kanji and that essence. And those who are enlightened, those of us who are on the path, some claim to be enlightened beings, and that's fine. That's not for me to judge, because I'm not enlightened, so I wouldn't know enlightenment if it hit me in the face at the moment. But the wonderful saying is, those who are enlightened never stop forging themselves. The realization of such masters cannot be expressed well in words or by theories. The most perfect actions echo the patterns found in nature. In other words, when we think we know something, when we are a master, that is only the beginning. We're only touching the surface of exactly what Reiki is, both in ourselves and in our understanding of the world. We're never there. And while we're talking about ki, let me just say there are two types of ki. There's ordinary ki and true ki. So ordinary ki is coarse and heavy. True ki is light and versatile. So in order to perform well, and this would perhaps help in those who heal themselves and heal others, so in order to perform well, you have to liberate yourself from ordinary ki and permeate your organs with true ki. That is the basis of powerful technique. Ki can be a gentle breeze, rustling the leaves, or a fierce wind snapping at large branches. When we do our daily practice, with the understanding of what it is that we are working with and invoking, i.e. the Reiki, then we become more aware of the harmony and the strength that we are. We are the universe. The universe resides inside us in the Hara. There is nothing outside, nothing whatsoever. All that is created, all that is comes from inside us, and our perception and our belief of what the universe is. We actually create it, and all come from one point. And that point is, in Japanese culture, the hara, the dantian in Chinese. There is nothing outside of that. Nothing. Reiki begins and ends with the dantian, with the hara. And so too, for those of you who know about the symbols from Reiki 2, let me give you an idea of how, for example, the power symbol was actually born. And this brings us back to this one point, that there's nothing inside or outside us, which is included in the key, and that is, this is how the universe came into being. There was no heaven, no earth, no universe, just empty space. In this vast emptiness, a single point suddenly manifested itself. From that point, steam, smoke and mist spiraled forth in a luminous sphere, and the sacred sound Su was born. As Su expanded circularly, up and down, left and right, nature and breath began, clear and uncontaminated. Breath developed life, and the sound Su is the word mentioned in many religions. And that is the origin, my friends, of the power symbol. That is how it came into being. If we look at things like vibration, energy, all came from that one emanation. Any questions?
Yeah, I haven't got any questions on that at the minute, Robert.
Okay, they're all very silent tonight.
Yeah, they are. Well, sometimes
Yeah.
people are shy.
That's all right, there's no problem with that. Yeah.
So have we sort of now looked at the aspects of comparing the old version and the new version of the kanji for Reiki?
Yeah, I think we've got enough for people to think and to explore, if they wish, in a deeper sense, and realise that Reiki is not something that comes from outside, from a higher power into us and we channel, but begins in us and through us, and that it means more than just universal life force energy, and that Mrs. Takata herself recognized that Reiki, although she described it as divine or the God energy, she didn't imply that it came from a higher power or higher source, because as we said earlier, her diaries of the 10th of December 1935 pointed out quite clearly that she believed that Reiki was something that resides in us and begins in us.
Okay, well, what I'm just going to do, Robert, is I'm just going to go to our last slide where people can see those links, and then I can leave that up on the screen while we have questions, and then people can make a note of those if they want to. So I've got 4 websites on here where you can find out more information on the kind of things we've been talking about this evening. The first one, reikiandmedicine.org, is Pamela Miles' website, and she has a guest blog there which talks about this very subject. We then have the International House of Reiki, which is Bronwyn and Fran Steener's website. They've got a lot of Reiki history on there, including a section under Reiki history. If you look at Reiki Kanji, they've got an article there. Then reikitraining.com, which is another Australian website, again with articles on this topic. And finally, the AETW website, which is commonly known as James Deacon's Reiki pages, and there are masses of articles on there. So that's a place where you can find out more information. Now, I can see that we've got a few questions here. Now, Sophie, you had your hand up first. If you've got a microphone, Sophie, I am going to unmute you so we can actually hear you. So I'm about to unmute you. I see there's some other questions, but I'll go to Sophie first as she had her hand up. So
Hi
Sophie,
there.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Hi,
I can.
hi Sophie. Have you got a
Hi.
question?
Yes, I do. Really fascinating. Thank you so much so far. I just wanted to ask that when I was trained, I was taught to visualize the symbols above my head, to visualize the energy above my head, and then to draw that down through the crown of my head, down into my tanden, and then allow that energy to radiate throughout the body and then out of the hands. So although I think I understand that the nature of the energy is universal in that we are all interconnected, I suppose I'm a little confused about when we're performing Reiki, either on ourselves or on others, where to visualize the energy coming from. I wonder if
Okay.
you could say something about
Yep,
that.
that's fine. Okay, Robert, do you want to take that?
Yeah, thank you, Sophie. That's a very good question and a very good point. And what you're doing, let me just give you the good news first, it's absolutely spot on and right.
Good.
So you don't need to change anything. You are doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because in what we quaintly call these days Eastern Reiki, there are a number of meditations, again, which visualize the energy coming through either the hands or the crown, although we don't use chakras, but we refer to those points and bringing it down through the top of the head, down to the hara, expanding from the hara, and then sending it out beyond our body to the world, to the universe and beyond. And often the same with the symbols. It is a good practice to visualize the symbols above one's head and to bring them down in and through the body and allow them to, let's use the word, shall we say, radiate out.
Mm-hmm.
So the hands are the key, especially at Reiki 1, the hands are the key to energy. If we look at it loosely, if we place our hands on, Reiki's on. Reiki is flowing. The keys to the energy from Reiki 2 are also the symbols, so we have the hands and the symbols. So it is a good meditation practice, and a practice I would encourage you to continue to visualize and use them in the way that you do.
Okay. So, sorry.
Yep. I was going to say, does that answer your question, Sophie? Do you want to ask a supplemental?
I don't want to take up everybody else's time. I guess I was just sort of, I was getting a little confused about the energy being solely from within us. It made me picture the energy originating in the hara rather than what I normally visualize is drawing the energy in from outside myself.
Okay, no, you don't draw it in from outside yourself, but the problem with our thinking is that we are taught that Reiki is a source from outside us. There's no such thing. Mm-hmm. Although from a human point of view, there is an outside. Can I just give you a phrase which might sound a bit strange, but I'll perhaps have to explain a little bit. In the absence of that which is not, that which is not. So how do we know that there is an inside and an outside? Because if there's only inside, we wouldn't know it without having outside to judge it by.
Okay.
So we have to have a duality. We think from a human point of view that we bring it in from outside, but we are all things. We are the universe. There's nothing to bring in, but on a human level, we have that thinking. And it's still right.
And I think part of this, Robert, is that, you know, when you first start learning the practice of Reiki, you've got nothing to go on. So your teacher has got to give you something to practice so that you
Yes.
begin to understand it. And the more you practice Reiki, the more it becomes your own energetic experience and the more you can understand it. But it's only through practice that you come to see these things and understand them. But at the beginning, you need some simple, almost mechanical method to connect you with those feelings. And different teachers will show you different ways. You've all got different techniques. But it's only it's only you coming to understand it yourself that will eventually make sense.
That's a great way. The teachers do a great job, but that is the key, Louise. It's practice. Reiki's not about reading books or theory or thinking we know because we read something. It is about the doing, and that key word, making it your own. That's how Reiki teaches and guides us. And the more we practice, the more we learn, and the more we realize we are Reiki. There's no outside. But carry on with what you're doing. You're doing exactly the right thing. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay,
That's really helpful.
Okay, Sophie?
Thank you.
Okay, I'm muting you now. I've got a written question here, Robert, from Miranda about the primordial sound Su, and she's asking how do you spell it?
S-U.
Yes, that's how she spelt it, so you
That's
passed
correct,
that
but
spelling test.
oh, she has, but also, without going into it, because this would be another seminar, it's short for Susano Ono, which brings in another meaning and brings in the other symbols and so on. But SU is the correct spelling.
Right, now I've got another question here on the little chat box. Do any of the links provided give information regarding meditations that can help focus and gravitate the energy from within us? Well, probably.
Yes, there are some, especially the one on the bottom. You'll find that there are certain Reiki meditations there.
Yeah, on the James Deacon page.
On the James Deacon. The one up from that, which is Lawrence Elyard, you may also find some on there. But if you type in Reiki meditations, you'll probably find hundreds of them.
Yeah.
So what I would urge is caution when you type in anything, because there's such a lot of misleading information as well. But the best way is on these websites, check out the standard trainings, and then you'll know, for instance, if you look at a meditation called Hatsurei Ho or Gasho Miso or so on, those are standard Reiki meditation techniques which help you enhance and become more and more aware of the Reiki energy within.
Yeah, and I think certainly on the International House of Reiki and the Lawrence Elyard site, both of them produce CDs and downloadable meditations.
Yeah.
So that's, but I would agree with Robert. You do need to these sites we would consider to be, good sources of information, but there is also a lot of strange Reiki stuff on the internet, so you do need to be a bit careful. Okay, let me just see if we've got anything else. Okay, if anybody else wants to ask a question live, if you want to put your hand up. Julie says, thank you, great talk.
Thank you.
We are just coming up. We've got 5 minutes airtime left. Oh, here's another one. Let me just... Oh, Sophie says, really fascinating talk. Many thanks. Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody. I hope that it's given you a thirst to explore deeper the meaning of Reiki and so on, and I'm sure that your magnificent masters could also help you further. If not, the Reiki Guild, for those of you who are members, you know it's a very good organisation. Louise, Rosemary, Adrian are very, very helpful indeed.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think of a question, you know, tomorrow, you can almost email it into the Reiki Guild office, and they'll pass it on to somebody who can answer it for you, I'm sure. Oh, Miranda's got a question. Let me just pop down there. Oh no, she's just saying wonderful session. Thank you, Miranda. Okay, so if last call for questions. If anybody's got a question. Oh, Ivan's got his hand up. Ivan, I'm going to unmute you as you're brave enough to put your hand up. So I'm just going to. Hello, Ivan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, that's good.
Fine. Well, thank you, Robert. It's been a great evening, and much appreciate the knowledge you've taught. So just quickly, how do you draw the old kanji? What is the process? How would you draw it? How are the lines constructed?
That's a very good question, Ivan. The basic thing on drawing any kanji is the lines left to right, straight, and then top to bottom down. But for those of you who want, you can go on certain websites if you type in Reiki Kanji, and they will give you the stroke order. If any of you find that difficult to find, I could ask Rosemary to scan in something I have, and then we could put that up, or maybe email it around to.
Yeah, or we could put it in a newsletter. I can email.
Yeah.
I've got the list of everybody who's on tonight. Yeah. I can email it, or we can put it in a newsletter.
Yeah, I can provide that for scanning with the numbers, and then people can see how to draw it in the proper stroke order.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. All the hard work with everyone concerned this evening. Thank you, Louise.
My pleasure, Ivan.
Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Could I just end by saying a great thanks to everybody who's been on the call, but a particular thanks, a personal thanks to Louise, because we had technical problems earlier in the week, and Louise was magnificent. She's also, to my mind, been a magnificent host, and made this really simple for me. So, Louise, thank you.
My pleasure, Robert. Okay, so last call for questions. We're just coming up to 9 o'clock. As I say, if you think of anything tomorrow, email the office and we'll try and get you an answer. It doesn't look like lots of people have said thank you very much. Okay, so that looks like it. Thank you for joining us this evening. This has been recorded, and I will send you out a recording sometime tomorrow so that you can listen to it again, and also you can see the slides again. Thank you very much. I'm just going to